everyone. Welcome to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Business Development for Parabolis. We provide a better financial partnership for government contractors that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today, my guest is GovCon Influencer and Networker Extraordinaire, Alexa Tsui. She is the COO of G2 Exchange. We met a couple of years ago at an event, and I'm so excited to be able to share some exciting news of our collaboration coming up soon, which we'll discuss a little bit more a little later. But she is an absolute rock star, and I am so happy to have you back on the show. Welcome, Alexa.
Thank you so much. What a kind, wonderful introduction. Can you do all of my introductions from now on?
Absolutely. I'll be your hype girl.
Yes, I love it.
Well, awesome. I think, a lot has changed since you were here last, both with this show and in your journey as well. So if you wouldn't mind, take a few minutes to introduce yourself properly.
Sure.
And tell our audience a little bit about your background, your expertise in GovCon, and share some details about G2 Exchange.
Sure, absolutely. It would be my happiness. Alexa Tsui, and I am the Chief Operating Officer.
Apologies.
Oh, it's okay. No, listen. It happens all the time, so don't even worry about it. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of G2 Exchange, and my background is actually a little bit interesting because I've done a lot of the different roles in the industry. So I started out working for a little company called Input, and that actually probably dated me to anybody listening because it was back in like the Fed Biz Ops days. That dates me too. So it was a long time ago. Input was the company that sold to Deltek, which is now GovWin. So I started my career there as an account manager, and then I moved over to Bloomberg Government and was direct to frontline sales for the small business market. And that was really my introduction to small business in general. And then from there, I went to do the BD capture role for about 12 years, 2 different companies. Technique, I ran the whole entire 8A program with them. And then Metaphase Consulting, more along the lines of strategic partnerships and technology sales and all kinds of different things at Metaphase. And then I came back to G2 Exchange for a second round as the Chief Operating Officer. I love this industry. I'm so passionate as an American and also as a taxpayer, as all these things. The more I realized what government contracting was and how impactful it is to citizen services in this country, the more I loved it, right? And also every day is different, right? Every agency is different, every mission is different, and every single one of them you can really get behind. So whether it's, the Department of Interior, the National Park Service, which I'm a hiker, I'm wearing my Jeep hoodie, so the Jeep wave top down, off-roading on some national park somewhere, or if I'm at NASA, which is another one of my favorite agencies, or the VA, which has one of the more advanced digital services delivery, offices in the entire government, right? Or the DoD too, right? So it's all these missions that, we can get really passionate about. And so that's really what speaks to me and is my why every single day when I wake up.
I love that. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm easily inspired by people who are passionate. And so I love the way that you explain how your flow through the different work that you've done has been really driven by the passion that you have in supporting, our country and the things that really make the inner workings of it give us the strength in both internally within our own country, but externally with our partners as well. And so it's awesome. It's a lot of what we talk about at Parabolis too, about why we do what we do, because we're supporting those people who are supporting the federal government. And it's an important role to play. And it is ever changing. And that's what makes it great. I'm with you. I don't like anything about monotony. I'm on the go way too much to be doing the same thing all the time. And even though I'm focused very easily, I don't want to be doing the same things all the time. Right. It doesn't inspire me to do better, right? And it's the new stuff that really is inspiring. So I love that. I think that's why I'm drawn to you. I told you before we started this show that I've been stalking you on LinkedIn. I copy as many things as possible. And I hope you take that as a form of flattery, because I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. You're doing great at what you do. And I incorporate as much as possible with that towards what the work is that I do, because I think that the replication of just that passionate approach alone is something that we all can do better by bringing it into our game. And so thank you for being that catalyst of change for me. And I'm excited to go through some really exciting things that I will be able to understand once you lay it out in layman's terms for us. But it's some of those overarching terms that we're hearing all the time that are side by side with the most important aspect of a GovCon's business, BD. So let's jump right in. Today, we're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about BD, business development, and we're going to talk about tips for moving the needle with regards to winning business. And so G2 Exchange is doing a lot to support that. And so in your opinion, and this is twofold, and so how is AI on the one side going to change our industry? And how is it changing right now because of it? And then on the other side, how are you guys at G2X using it to, officially assist on the business development side?
Right. These are great questions. So how does AI affect our industry? I think, that's a really broad question, because it's going to touch every single part of the government from their side. And I always call it, instead of GovCon, I like to call it GovCom, because of the government community. Really, I want to encompass not only the contractor side, but also the government side as well. And I think that we can't be successful unless we look at it as a whole, right? Not only half the story. So I think that AI is going to be impacting every single piece of the mission, as so whether it's the contracting office and they're using it to evaluate or write solicitations or any of those other things, market research, all of that. Or if it's on the delivery side, where I was talking to somebody from the VA Innovation Office that was telling me that she was introducing VR systems to the veterans and using it for therapy. And I was like, what? It was like so awesome, right? And that kind of innovation and the way, like, using AI in that regard. And we talked a lot about doctors' offices and how, healthcare and integrated healthcare with AI. And these are all really hot topics. And so I think that there's multitude and in many different ways that AI is going to impact the government side of things. But so industry side of things, of course, government contractors do two main things: delivery and write proposals. And writing proposals involves the BD capture and then the writing of the proposals. And in the best case scenario, those folks work hand in hand with each other and the operations team to create this growth atmosphere where we're all kind of in tandem with each other. It's like a dream, right? Holy grail. So how is G2X using AI? So Teresa, we're not just using AI, we're building AI tools into the platform, into every single touch point, because we want to work smarter, not harder. So the first thing we did was we launched a tool called Lumen, and I've been posting about it on LinkedIn. When I was talking,
I've seen it.
Yeah, the AI drinking game I brought up yesterday, which don't try that at home. But basically, where you can paste a SAM.gov link into our website, like literally G2Xexchange.com, and then paste a SAM link in there, and an AI tool will pop up, and you can start asking questions against that SAM link, whatever that RFI, RFP is. And so that was one example. We also purchased a company called GovAIQ, and that company is a proposal co-pilot. So, as being somebody that cares a lot about how things are done and wants to make sure that we align with the mission, we're not out here just trying to win more proposals for the fun of it or to make more money or anything like that. I mean, anybody that does this job should realize, as a taxpayer, your job is to do better delivery, not to win more contracts.
Right.
So we need to write better proposals. And the way that we do that is to make sure that we don't want to use AI to write the proposals all the way through to submission. And so it's something I feel strongly about, even as a company that owns an AI co-writing pilot, right? So whenever I demo it, I always tell folks, don't use any tool past the red team. So once you get, to your pinks and it's all there and it's looking like, okay, we're answering the mail. When you start putting in your secret sauce, like how you do things, why you do them, or maybe even some of the reasons that you've won work, or or the delivery you've done before, or the results that you've brought, take that out of whatever AI tool you're using, whether you're using ours or others, and put it in something else, because that you don't want to be training AI models on your own past performance. That just seems like common sense to me. But our tool is actually embedded in our product, and everybody gets it for free. We give it away for free to those folks that have a business level, enterprise, or otherwise subscription to G2X.
That's awesome. I think I love your point of working smart, not hard. That's not new, right? Everyone understands that.
Yeah.
But employing certain aspects of the way that you do things is key. And I think that's what usually the employment of that motto, that's where the execution side of it, that's where the translation gets lost, right? People understand that concept. They just don't know how to employ it with their business. And so AI, using it as a tool for that, anyone that's been involved in the BD capture team understands the long-term goal sometimes takes a long time, right? And so when you're putting those proposals together in the end, especially when, like on my side of it, right, I usually would come in as the translator between what my relationship was telling me they needed and what the technical writer was trying to put in it. It's like, nobody's going to understand that. Like,
yeah.
Let's break it down in language that actually makes sense to someone who's going to take that and say, yep, they're the ones that we want to use. So let's put it in language that they understand.
Yeah. And Teresa, you're bringing up an interesting point that I like to talk a lot about. But I'm going to start talking about it more because it's really important. And that is, not just solving for the mission, but remembering that this is a people-based business, and people buy from people that they like.
Yeah.
Be likable, make friends. I say that all the time. Like, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I shape an RFP? How do I even know it's coming out? How do I get ahead of the process? Make friends.
Yep.
Right? And don't network for the whole case of networking. If you're going to do something in your life, and this goes for your entire life, if you do something for somebody expecting something, you're not being a friend, you're not being helpful, you're doing business.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of apply that thinking process to networking as well. So I'm out there, I'm connecting people, I'm connecting companies, I'm solving problems, I'm finding people jobs that I don't even know.
Yep.
Why? Because I want to be that go-to person for everybody and for the greater good.
Yep. I love that. I share that in common with you, sister. So I'm with you 100%. And I love that. And I think it's important, right? We can all do well. We just got to do some good along the way. And it's not hard.
Right.
We just got to take the you out of it or the I out of it and focus on the we. And that's easy. And if you're a service-based business, that should be part of the motto every day anyway. But sometimes we get lost in the weeds because success and money and all of that and power, all of that drives in. But there's ways to do that and still do good by others along the way. And I think that you do a really great job of that. I love the connector spotlight there. That's an important part of doing business, but it's also an important part of where we're leaving the world better than where we found it too. You can be successful and still be a good person along the way. So, and anyone that knows you knows that too. You're warm, you're welcoming. It's not a cold transactional relationship that you have with people. And I think that's why you've been able to do as well and influence the way that you do, because it's very recognizable very quickly. So keep up the good work, and no, she didn't pay me for that plug.
I appreciate you. I feel like I talk about this in every podcast, but there was one book that changed my life. Because where I had like a lot of these ideas and a lot of warmth and a lot of wanting to be of service, I didn't have a framework. And so when I read this book, it really gave me the framework for delivery. And that book was The Go-Giver. And The Go-Giver tells the story from the point of view of a salesperson trying to make a sale. And it's like a parable. And it really helped me understand, like, okay, this is how I do it. This is why I do it. And here's the model of delivery for being that service-oriented I guess, salesperson, right? Because I am a trained salesperson. I'm a chief operating officer, but I'm also a chief growth officer as well.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I wrote it down. That's going to be my next one. I'm one of those nerds that listens to Audible while I'm working out. So that'll be the next one on the list. I won't tell you what I'm listening to right now because it will just show what a dork I am. And I don't normally like people to know that. I like them only to think that I'm cool always.
Being a dork is being cool, Teresa.
I know. But, I grew up in the 90s, so it's hard to kind of remind myself of that. So, all right. Well, let's get back to why I have you here, because I could keep you here literally all day long because I love absolutely everything that you're talking about. But we both are passionate about BD. I'm have a big sales background as well. And I did a little bit of it within GovCon before coming to the service side of the industry. So let's talk about that, because that's what people are most interested in, I'm sure, when they're listening to this conversation. What is your best way that someone can kick off their BD process?
It's funny, as I was talking a little bit earlier, I was thinking to myself, oh man, I'm stealing my own thunder. Because I remembered that you were going to ask me this question, and then I was like, don't mention it yet, but I'm going to say it again, I guess, for the people in the back.
Yeah.
But basically it's to make friends. So people, I guess I'll expand on that. Go to events, right? Go to a lot of industry events. And by the way, in this town, you cannot turn around without running into 1,000 of them, and not just the industry events, but attend government events as well. And there's a lot of them, right? So when you go to these events, the big primes, the usual Beltway bandits, I think they used to be called, the SCICs and the Lidos and Paratons and GDITs, those folks are all going to be there. So, make friends with those guys and gals. But then on the government side also, those folks are not professional networkers like we are. That's not their job. In fact, the whole industry connection point is oftentimes very difficult for them. So whenever I go to like ACT, IX, ELC, my favorite thing to do is to really make it my job to help the government folks feel comfortable, because they're feeling like a piece of meat, right? And I understand that point of view. And a lot of them are technical, and they're like, oh, this is like, they're introverted, they're technical. They're like, yeah, this is like the hardest thing for me. So I just like to pair myself up with like 4 or 5 of them and hang out with them, bring them to the dance floor, like, whatever it is, just make them feel comfortable, warm, and welcome. And that kind of thing goes a long way. And it really helps you realize like what it means to be a good friend and what it means to make friends at that level. And by the way, those government folks are the same folks that are going to be putting out a proposal maybe in the next whatever. And they're not going to like pick up the phone and be like, hey, Alexa, I'm building this proposal. How should I do it? That's not also how it works. Right. But they might be like, hey, I released this RFI on SAM this morning. I don't know if you saw it. Would love your company's thoughts. That's something they might do. And then you are notified early on in the process and get behind it.
Yep. I think, 2 things that are important. It's that human to human aspect, right? People like doing business with people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And you can't form trust through an email.
No.
So you have to interact face to face, because people can tell more about who you are by body language and your interactions, face to face, which was hard for a long time during COVID. We don't have that issue anymore. I know a lot of people still think that they can function through Zoom, which you can do a lot, right? I mean, it definitely enlightened us to a different level of that you don't have to be everywhere, but being in the room and getting a seat at the table doesn't happen unless you show up, because people will start to take notice that you care enough to show up. Because in my role, mine's more of that strategic partnership realm. It is the branding side of things. And nobody knows about you unless you're in the room. And you can fall out of sight, out of mind really quickly if you're not going to these things. So there is, even though you're going to meet some wonderful people and you're going to make some really impactful, wonderful relationships, and those you can keep beyond anything else, your brand, if you're really looking to socialize your brand in certain areas, you got to show up. It says a lot, and it's not easy, and especially if you're trying to do everything bootstrapping it. You and I have been there, right? People say, I'm sure they say the same thing to you as they say to me. Number one, how do you have the energy to do everything that you do?
Yep.
And number two, I swear you're everywhere. And
Yeah.
it isn't easy. There are days where I'm like, I'm tired, but I get energized by being around people who share that similar passion. And so it does make it easier. Show up. It gets easier every single time. We all have to start somewhere. You and I both started somewhere where it was like we were walking into a room of a sea of people that we did not know.
Absolutely.
And now we can do that and we see a sea of friends,
Exactly. Yeah, no, I saw something posted on LinkedIn, and it was one of the threads I was in, and I was talking about B to G, B to C, and somebody said, what about B to human, B to H?
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
That's exactly
Let's steal it. We can steal it. We'll give them credit for it, right? But it's great. Judy Bratt says it all the time. And I was like, Judy, I love it. And so it is. It's a human to human operation. And some people need to, remember that. So I love that is your first tip in your BD process is just remember we're all humans. Let's talk to each other with respect. Let's form some meaningful relationships. Let's have a little fun along the way too. And then there's business to be done, but it's easier to do it when we know each other a little better. And those opportunities will come in a different, more organic form if you have those relationships. And so you and I can testify to that all day long because that's how I do business. And I know you do as well. So that's awesome. Okay, so let's move on a little bit more with some more tips. Sure. What are 3 things that businesses can start doing today to help outside of this, right? Human to human, we got it. But what are three other things or 2 more things that can help move their BD capture pipeline forward?
Yes. First things first, sign up for G2X. I mean, and it's funny that I'm saying that because, everybody's like, of course you would say that, Alexa. No, but actually facts, because G2X is the only business development tool on the market. There's GovWin, there's, BGov, there's all these other tools, Fed Compass and HireGov and all these Govly, who knows, whatever. Mm-hmm. You use the word Gov, you can create a tool around it. It probably exists out there.
Right.
But I find a lot of these tools, especially the ones that have been around for a long time, like GovWin, I feel like those are very capture focused. Like you're logging in there to find and mine information to answer a specific question. And you can also build pipelines in there and this and that. But when it comes to, as I had mentioned, events, what's happening, keeping a pulse of the market. When you show up to an event, when you walk up to some strangers, what are you going to say, right? We actually have industry moves. So you be like, hey, I saw you got this new industry move. Or we have the government industry moves covered as well. This government person moved from this agency to this agency. What are you excited about? Like, what are you looking to accomplish, right? So I would say the first one would be to sign up for G2X, to keep yourself in that knowing space. And so that way, when you go to the events, you know what to say to the folks that you meet, right?
Right.
Have something to contribute. Mm-hmm. The second thing I would say is to make good friends with the OSDBU. And it's funny that I'm saying this because when I was working as a BD capture person for the 2 companies that I did work for, and somebody gave me this advice, I would be like, oh my God, no, I'm not doing that. Just because it really depends on the OSDBU, honestly. Yeah. Some of them are very good. Mm-hmm. Very good. And some of them are gatekeepers. And some of them are just frankly not as experienced enough to be helpful.
Right.
So it kind of runs the gamut. But the thing is that somebody pointed out to me just this week is a lot of OSDBUs are former contracting officers. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of friends. Yeah. And I'm like, that's something I didn't even think about. Mm-hmm. So I think the second thing I would say is, even if you think the OSDBUs are not as useful as you might need them to be, I would say rethink that. Yeah. Because if I was to go back and do a BD capture job, that would be the first thing I did. Mm-hmm. I would suss out in my network, like who all are my OSDBU friends, like my Wayne Berries over at HHS and, Darlene over at DHS. And there's a whole bunch of them. And I would deep dive into who I know and backtrack that into, some companies call it green space, some companies call it white space, kind of growth opportunities. And the third thing that I would say to do is to really niche down into some agencies where you can get behind the mission. And I am one of those shiny object people where I'm like, all the agencies are awesome. I want to do all the things.
Yep.
That is something I fight all the time because it's true. I want to do all the things. But if I had to niche down into specific agencies, like what are you really good at? Where do you want to grow deep into? Because if you have a company that has one contract for 14 agencies, it's hard to sell that past performance because then you look like some commodity IT buy. Like who cares?
Yep.
But if you are the go-to FEMA contractor, then other agencies that do work like FEMA would be interested in you. Why? Because you understand the mission, you understand the challenges, you understand how to address that specific mission.
Yep.
So I would say definitely figure out where you can niche down and build that capability. Those would be
I love it. I love it. And this leads me into, we talked a lot about, showing up, getting in the room and making those connections, which is a perfect segue into our collaborative event that we're doing in September. You were sweet enough to bring Parabolis in to help, blast it out for our communities together. We've got a client base that we are very excited to be able to invite to this. So I would love it if you would share some of the information about that. We're going to share the website where people can register for it as well. But if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about what we got coming up in September.
Teresa, first of all, I'm very excited about it. And I have to shout out Parabolis. First of all, for them hiring you, which was so awesome. But the whole role of the capital piece to government contracting is really important. I think people don't realize that a lot of the bigger bids require lines of credit submitted with proposals. And if you don't have it, it's a no bid. So, companies like Parabolis are very important and impactful, and we're grateful to have you as a partner for this event. So now that I said that.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. So Brian Friel is a friend of mine, and he owns BD Squared, and him and I worked together at Bloomberg Government, and I've always just really aligned with him from a human-to-human perspective. And him and I are kind of geeks together when it comes to GovCon. And he and I wanted to do a mentor protege event for a long time because I've put them together. He manages a lot of the proposals for a lot of JVs. And so he sees the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've lived the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so what we wanted to do was to put together an event where we could have a panel talking about why do this? It's the new strategy. With the GSA vehicles, some of them, being under protest fire for months and months and years, and so it's really like JVs are the strategy forward, and to be able to do it well and execute and win is a whole thing. So we're going to talk about, the panel's going to be talking about how to do it and some success stories as well as compliance. We're going to hope to have a lawyer and a contracting officer on the panel as well. And then we're going to go into a whole educational strategy session as to like what to avoid, what to look for, how to build this, and how to build a joint pipeline, which is really as easy as it sounds to build a joint pipeline. Have you ever built a pipeline? Even in your own company, it's not easy. But building a joint pipeline for a JV is even harder. So how to do that? And then that's the first part of the program. The second part of the program is going to be matchmaking networking. So when you register, we're going to ask you, are you here like looking for a mentor or a protege? And whatever your answer is to that question, you either get a green badge or a red badge. So that way you know who you're looking for. We're not going to do like speed dating or any of that. We're going to like have people organically networking to build these relationships.
I love it. I think not only is this a hot topic that can go really far to assist with that whole BD capture program that you guys with G2 Exchange are really supporting, but it's an important aspect of doing business that can really add some deep value to the success overall. So we are super excited. We are, already all set up for it. So it's just a matter of clicking on the link. We're going to be sending it out to our client base and our prospective client base. And I know that it's going to be a great turnout. So we are super excited to be a part of it. Thank you so much for including us in it. And I'm just going to continue to encourage everyone to look into it. If you're available, come and join us. It'll be a great time. And we always have a good time, though. We bring the good time, right?
Oh yeah. There's never a time when we don't have a good time.
That's right. Well, listen, I very much appreciate you being a part of the show. I'm going to definitely bring you back on. Hopefully, the other collaborators on the event in September, we'd like to include them as well. So we'll do another panel discussion in the coming months to kind of expose to a deeper level of all the good things that are going on within our networks and really let people know where the assistance can be found. And so, as always, you're a joy. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity, Teresa.
Absolutely. Anytime. And I'm glad that I know that I can bring you back again soon too.
Yes.
Awesome. So, thank you all for joining us as well. As always, we pride ourselves on sharing the most insightful and exciting people and information to help you better navigate your GovCon journey. If you like what you heard today, you can see all of our past podcasts, which are archived on our YouTube channel by the same name. Stay tuned for all of our future guests in the coming months as we help you grow to great heights in the year ahead. I'm Teresa Moon, and this is Spilling the Tea on GovCon. Have a great day, my friends.